Jack Parsons got me on the moon. Jack Parsons got me on the moon. Well, good evening, everybody, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are, or whatever you would like to be. Welcome to another episode of VoN Velocity of Now with the Fortean esoteric twist. I've done a few episodes so far, and I know you've been enjoying them, and I'm only making them if I know they're going to be good. I don't go over the same things over and over again. Those of you who've been following me for years, I don't like to do that. Lots of reasons, including a very selfish reason. It's well known that as you get older, if you don't learn new things, if you don't continue to build your neuroplasticity, that you actually go into a kind of a negative cognitive decline. And I want to be one of these annoying outfellas who can talk on any subject up until he's 100. That's my plan. And so a big part of that is to never be complacent in your information, both in your cognitive memory banks, if such a thing exists, and also in conveying information to others. You've got to keep learning. You've got to not repeat on cycle, because it's just been shown to be no good for you. You know, the brain is the most important organ you'll have after a certain age, because you can't really do a lot for the body with entropy and so on. But if you've got a good brain, it helps everything else work. It keeps the vitality of life. So that's why I don't do I'll never be the kind of person that does these videos every day saying the same things over and over again. I also have a higher opinion of my audience than seeing them as church members who want to hear sermons all the time. Like, I don't know how someone like Nick Pope has spent 40, 50 years saying the same nothing about aliens and disclosure, giving no new information, saying nothing, and building a really long career on it. I'd be interested to know the kind of people who attend these events, such as the UFO events, hearing the same information over and over again with nothing new. I'd often wonder how they manage in terms of things like Alzheimer's and dementia. I would, because that's been shown. That's one other reason I don't think it's a good idea to be going to church and hearing the same thing over and over again. You will eventually, it will. That's why you don't see too many older people in church, or they have the priest has to go visit them while they're demented in the home. Always keep yourself filled with new information, even if it's bullshit. That's an important thing too as well. People think, oh, I have to be an intellectual, I have to memorize and cycle. No. If you're into football, if you're into soccer, right? don't take an interest in a team you know nothing about, in the Croatian league, and learn about that. Follow them for a bit and then move on to something else. The important thing is that you can have the same contextual underpinning knowledge foundation, but to constantly add new things to it that you're learning. And so I hope the Velocity of Now and this Unknown Machine channel is like this. I hope I'm doing that for you too. I'm opening trajectories of knowledge that you can go on. And because I'm a weirdo, I often see things sort of like different. I've always been a weirdo that way, right back to as a little kid. I can remember the first sentence we wrote in school when I was like really young was, "Look, the train is coming." And you had these copybooks back then that had 2 red lines and 2 blue lines, so you could learn the difference between capitals and lowercase letters. And so the L, you went to the top blue line, and with the O's and the K, you used the red lines to be the bottom part of the lowercase letters. And I wrote the thing down, "Look, the train is coming." Just like the teacher done it on the blackboard. The blackboard had those 4 lines as well, coloured lines. And then I got my pen and I pencil, whatever. Actually, it was actually a quill with ink in it. The very first pens I used in school, there was a little inkwell at the top of the school desk, and you got a little plastic pen with a quill on it. So it was like the first time I learned to write, it was with a pen and ink, like old-fashioned style, and it wasn't cursive. Even block lettering was done like that. And I got the ink and the quill, and I changed the L to a B. So I wrote, I don't know, "Book, the train is coming. Book, the train is coming." And the school teacher comes over to me and says, "Thomas, why did you change the L to a B?" And I says, "Well, you can't get on the train unless you book your ticket." And she burst out laughing and said, "You're going to be very dangerous when you grow up." And that was it. That was like how I knew I wasn't an NPC right then. What was it, 4? I knew I wasn't an NPC back then. And because I went on an imaginative thing. So that leads you, I'm sure many of you what listen to this show have had similar experiences. That led you out of, maybe you were never normal, but led you out of normal lifestyle. And something was done or said, maybe I even said it, and it led you out of it. So with that long-winded, somewhat pompous introduction, this will be a 2-part show tonight as usual. The first half is free, and the second on Unknown Machine, and the second half is for the Patreon subscribers. And everyone who's signed up so far has said it's been fantastic. It's well worth. I'm not a very good salesperson. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a terrible salesperson. I'm just useless that way. I don't have that sales. I don't have a sales thing in me. So, but I'm just saying that, like, that's what other people said. That's what they said. And you're getting. It's lovely the way the windows are set up and everything on it, and all the videos there, and you can have a chat and things like that. So this will be tonight's show. Now that we've gotten past that, and is the ThreeIA Atlas object. Now, this had a tremendous amount of hype, and it's now just basically we shut down the media. It was amazing how the media were going on and 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 on, and then suddenly said, "It's a comet, go away." And all the normies and all the scientific motherfuckers, well, it was turned out to be a comet. You said so on BBC, so it was a comet. No, that thing was not a comet. No way, absolutely. I don't know what it was. Well, I'm going to outline an esoteric, should we say, possibility of what it might be. Everyone's talking aliens, an alien probe, a spaceship that we launched in the past coming back, or in the future coming. I'm going to give a different side to it. You're going to get the VoNX, Thomas Sheridan, book The Train is Coming side of things. So, those of you that don't know, ThreeIA Ataklas was the third officially confirmed interstellar object after Uma and 2I Borisov, which didn't get a lot of publicity, to pass through our solar system that we've detected. I mean, it could have come before that, but we probably didn't have the technology to detect them. By that, it means it didn't come from inside the Oort cloud where comets come from. It didn't come from the asteroid belt being knocked off by 2 asteroids hitting. It came from a trajectory outside the solar, the Copernican concept of the solar system, of these, our planets and all the other stuff circling the sun. Now, it's referred to still as an active interstellar comet, and it was discovered on July 1st, 2025 by the Atlas Survey Telescope, an amazing machine down there in Chile in South America, up high in the Andes, an amazing, incredible machine. Now, it follows what they call a hyperbolic trajectory, which means it came into the solar system like, think of a very deep letter U, that kind of a thing. It came in it came in and then it turned at a tight angle and came out. Well, it's not gone out yet. It's still just moving away. And that's called an unbound trajectory. And it's just visiting the solar system. And what led to the whole thing was a spaceship from the past that we launched coming back, is that it will come again. It's still on this enormous trajectory. And the sun has done this to it. To swing it out, and it will not come back. So that's why it should. That's why I don't buy the thing. It was one of ours that coming back, because if we did that, we'd probably use the sun to slingshot it. It's not from here. It's gone. It will never come back, like a comet or an asteroid that survives a collision. It will never come back. Now, in February 2026. Which is just about ending now, the comet is moving away from the sun, which is the post-perihelion, the closest. Ironically, it got closest to the sun on Samhain, which I thought was amazing. Of all the times it reaches the sun, it gets closest to the sun, was during Samhain, when the veil is apparently thinner. Now, I was the only one at the time to go, "Oh, that's interesting," and then, like, literally, the next November 1st, so you had the 30th, it orbited the sun on the 31st, and then left on All Saints Day, and I was like, "Well, that's pretty interesting." And then it was literally, the media went zip, gone, nothing, and it's now considered to be no longer dramatically active. But they did discover things about its structure, its movements, and this kind of thing. And these were basically done until now. So this is the latest information, and the astronomers have just come out with some incredible composite views. So what they do is they get multiple observatories, like the Very Large Telescope. There's one called Pan-STARRS, Hubble, SOHO, and JWST, and a few others. And what they do is they use AI to assemble three-dimensional models of the thing, because they're all seeing from distant points. Now, it's basically a pale in color, elongated, a thin tail, and most importantly of all, 3 jet structures. Which what they're trying to say, oh, it's outgassing, gas emissions. No, it's not. I'm going to talk about how that's not. And this is what's the real bone of contention now. These things behave like thrusters. They slowed it down. This doesn't happen with a comet. They fired and changed directions. They had 3 of them that act as in classic spaceship style, a way to navigate through the vacuum of space by firing the thrusters accordingly. This is a comet. If this is a comet, it's a comet. Now, pay attention. If this is a comet, and it's not a spaceship or a space probe by the aliens, it is alive at some level. It is conscious. So as it was leaving the sun, the observations, particularly some good ones from Hubble in late 25 and back in January, it showed these strange wobbles of the main jets that ran over a 7.2 hour rotation period and varied in brightness. And wait for this, they were the color blue. Why were they the color blue? Because this is the only quote unquote comet in history that actually ejected water vapor. Why would a comet have water vapor as part of its trajectory? The only thing I can come up with is a coolant. It also contains large CO2, organic materials, and other molecules. And these weird organics seem to, what they call, wake up as it got closer to the sun. Like the heat cracked it open, is what they're trying to say. And these organic chemicals came out. And then that gave us the whole thing of seeding, panspermia and all this stuff. Or are they aliens or beings that came out? We just don't know. We just don't know. But this thing gave off water as if it had an internal cooling system that, as approached the sun, it deliberately ran the cooling system through this cone-shaped object in order to reduce the temperature, and then it produced what they called organics in this water cloud. Now, Hubble also captured it during a near Sun-Earth comet alignment, which was again weird. Like this, it's like it ties us into the Nigel Neal thing: space, megaliths, solar worship, ancient sites, that kind of a thing, alignments. And that was in January 2026, in opposition to the full moon phase. And it showed it had an antitail, which gave them the ability to see there was something else coming out of it. So this thing was like never like any comet that has ever existed. Even though the media said it's a comet, shut up, go away. Now, in 2026, there was a paper that came out from a group called the Initiative for Interstellar Studies, and they want to rendezvous with it later on its outbound part. So they want to send a spaceship to explore it. So this is very Arthur C. Clarke, isn't it? The kind of thing, going out and finding this like bizarre spaceship. Now it's fading, but not like it should. It's fading not because of the sun. It's fading because of distance. It still seems to have an ability to emit light during the outgassing process, again like thrusters. And it was never any danger to Earth, even though you had all these Egypts online saying it was a spaceship coming with the aliens and all this stuff. Now, it did produce a lot of peak excitement. It really did in 2025, with lots, the media coverage was OTT as usual, but there was no, big dramatic thing happened that they could report, like a course change. But it did happen. It seems to have possessed a water coolant. It used these quote unquote outgassing to change its alignment and to slow it down. Now this thing changed speed. Not only did it did change direction, but like almost in a kind of like an adjustment way. Let's put it this way: it seemed to be not changing direction, but using this quote unquote outgassing, thrusters to maintain a specific trajectory in a holding pattern, if you know what I mean, which is just as impressive as if it suddenly turned like a Uma did. So this thing is now heading towards, and I think it's March 26th, the end of next month, in a few days. It's heading towards Jupiter. Now, they'll get another chance to do some observation. Why is it heading towards Jupiter? Now, it could be just happenstance. It's just happening. And It's just what it is. Or else it's going down on purpose. Now, that's the science of it, with a little bit of kind of conspiratorial, I would say, interjection. Now I want to talk about what these space probes mean to me, and why I think, like for instance, within the conspiratorial theme, I think when in a lot of conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying any one particular person out there is doing this on purpose, but I think they also use conspiracy to take the focus off things that are genuinely incredible and unbelievable that they can't explain. So it's very easy for governments don't have to say, scientists don't have to explain things. If there's a conspiracy theory taking people somewhere else, and then they just laugh it all off. Just laugh it all off. I'll give, that's it. So in recent years, we've had this whole thing, and it came out of the Apollo hoax. I believe the Apollo hoax is not real. They did go to the moon. And the reason they haven't gone back isn't because they wiped the tapes or lost the technology or anything like that. It's because something up there freaked them out. As soon as you get away from the planet, Einstein's general relativity kicks in. Time changes, but affects the body and the mind. And that's why those astronauts who came back were changed people. Now, I don't blame people for being, speculating about the moon landing. I was there myself back in the 90s. But then every question was answered for me. But what really did it for me was how anytime you went to a trail of things that were very odd about the moon, like things that astronauts reported seeing that shouldn't have been there, or being observed by other crafts, or even talked about strange megaliths, and so on, and lights that shouldn't have been lit up on the dark side of the moon when they were doing the orbital trajectory, that made me actually believe in the thing more. Because why would you create a hoax about going to the moon and then have astronauts saying things like, they literally came off a spaceship and some of them went to an ashram to try and get the meaning of life. And these were hard drinking, tough US Navy pilots for the most part. So it suited the powers that be to put out a hoax, a moon landing hoax, so they wouldn't have to explain the real shit. You see, this is when you become conspiracy theorist 2.0. Well, you come second, next level is when you realize the conspiracies are often a conspiracy to take away from some other conspiracy. An enigma wrapped up inside a mystery, wrapped up inside an anomaly. So you have this situation now where from the moon hoax it expanded out to things like space isn't real. It doesn't exist. It's just like the Bible says, and the earth is flat, and you can't go to space, and the moon and the sun are in the atmosphere, low down low. Space doesn't exist. It's all, and then they think they're really clever. You can always tell conspiracy midwits when they say things like, space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. As if they've just said something profound, like, Anthony Kiedis was sitting there in mission control with his knob in his hand, inventing moon hoaxes, space hoaxes. You see, that's that's supposed to be like, some kind of profound statement, a real conspiratorial midwit thing to make up. NASA, never a straight answer. Oh, aren't you a clever motherfucker? Or it means to deceive in Hebrew. No, it doesn't. Jack Parsons, and all this stuff. I don't bother with them. And other than for a laugh. But so this whole thing that space isn't real, that's one. That deflects away from the increasing strangeness of our scientific cosmological relationship with outer space, particularly through space probes and space travel, and even things like radio telescopes and so on. That coupled with David Icke having everybody terrified of the moon. They're all afraid of the moon, you know. They're all afraid of the moon, you know, because of David Icke and his moon matrix bullshit. They're all afraid of the moon, you know. They're actually afraid of it, and they think it's this thing locking us in the moon in a matrix, you know. Now the moon is very peculiar. It's very strange, but the irony, you know, and the Earth would probably be in an awful state if the moon disappeared and left. It would, because it affects so many things, and the moon does. People say it's artificial in terms of the tidal locking, and that's this kind of thing. And it is astonishing how it's the same size as the sun. And I could understand where David Icke initially came up with these. Well, he didn't. He got them from other people before him, but he packaged them into this moon matrix thing. And he's very good at that kind of thing. But it doesn't mean it's right. You have to remember, it doesn't mean it's right. In my book, Sorcery, The Invocation of Strangers, I had a dream that the moon was actually brought into the Earth's orbital trajectory by early forms of human consciousness. And in order for, consciousness, and for consciousness to emerge from the bottom of the oceans where it developed initially, it had to stabilize the surface of the planet. And the moon was brought in for that purpose. I know that's wild and out there, but I'll go with that. That suits me fine, because I'm going to give you other evidence that kind of like adds up to this kind of thing of a psychic participatory relationship between consciousness as a whole, between human consciousness and the moon. We're going to go into some very freaky places in this show tonight, but you will no doubt enjoy them, even if you think they're a load of shite. You will definitely enjoy them because they are worthy speculation. And so, back in the 1930s and 40s, in the Soviet Union, they were afraid of basically religion and spirituality, okay? They were afraid of it. And they were trying to ban it as, you know, irrational superstition and all this kind of thing, because it didn't align with like the Bolshevik mentality or the Soviet mentality that was very much based on things like constructivism and the scientific trajectory of the Soviet Union and the republics. Religion was seen as a direct buffer inhibitor to the scientific and economic growth of Russia. There was some truth to that at the time, because, like the peasantry in Russia prior to the revolution, I'm not supporting the Bolsheviks, by the way, were kind of kept in check by the Orthodox Church and its very strange relationship with the Tsarist family, where the Tsar or the Tsarina were considered God on earth, more or less. And that's how the Russian peasantry saw them, even the middle classes. I mean, the normies have always been normies. I mean, there was one time, there was a celebration of their wedding of the Tsar Nicholas and the Tsarina Alexandria, and some company had been commissioned to produce ceramic teapots that were to be, had their pictures on them. You know that thing they do, like these commemorative plates or commemorative ceramics. And there was people who were trying to get these teapots were involved in a riot, and thousands were killed. To get a teapot with the Tsar and the Tsarina on it, they were killed in the crush. So that's probably why there was an intense reaction against organized religion within the Soviet Union. But they still knew that people had an intrinsic need for a spiritual dimension towards their existence. And so this concept of cosmism was built up. Basically, cosmism was a belief that, yes, there is spiritual states, but they don't exist on this planet. And I remember when I first read about that, I thought it was terribly interesting, because within esoteric Luciferianism, not the pagan god Lucifer, which I venerate, the Roman Greco-Roman god, but esoteric Luciferianism that came out of Ariosophy and Theosophy movements in the late Victorian era. The belief is that Lucifer is the god of this planet, while God, the supreme Godhead, is the God of the universe. So that's, this is why you have this concept within Luciferianism, within the Lucius thrust, within Theosophy to a certain extent, definitely in Ariosophy, that there's some kind of guardian force on the planet that stops us from getting to our spiritual dimensions, which are out in outer space. And this is what astrology is, and so on. So, like, this is how the fates of individuals, peoples, nations, cities are determined by the movement of the stars across the ecliptic within the zodiac, because there is a psychic bonding with them, which is, a same part of the same psychic bonding which came to me in a dream that brought the moon to the earth in order to stabilize the surface of the planet, so consciousness could evolve onto the surface of the planet, out of the chaos, out of the primordial chaos. So that was very interesting that they had brought this like sort of like late Victorian Luciferian, esoteric Luciferian concept into. See, this is why you listen to VoN. I'm not some fucking Egypt fuckwit going, they're Luciferians, they're out there out to fucking psychophite, they're Epstein's in space, only the Bible can help us. Jesus Christ, and the Bible will help us. You see, this is why you stayed with me all these years. This is all why I get shit numbers in terms of viewership. This is why no one knows who I am, except to call me some kind of devil man or devil worshipper. You're getting an unfiltered, non-Abrahamic discussion into these incredibly interesting topics. And I'm not trying to scare the shit out of you, so you buy my vitamins or a baseball cap or something, I don't make you afraid of rock music. I don't make you afraid of the moon. I give you the knowledge to help you work and navigate with these things. But, some of you want your Bible, it's Jesus going to come and save us from Jesus, So that's what this is about, okay? You're getting information that's not brought from a prejudiced point of view to terrify you, the same old shit that destroys your neural pathways because you're hearing nothing new and different. This is a new way of thinking for you because this expands knowledge. Take care.